Hey, good afternoon. We're in the teaching garden and today we have a shade tree to prune. And so the problem is the principles of pruning a shade tree also apply to your fruit trees. So we're going to start with the shade tree this day and then we're going to move for the next video to fruit trees. So when you have a tree and things are growing from the bottom of the tree at the ground level, that is called sucker growth. The reason they call it sucker growth, and I'm going to go reach down in here and prune this out. And there it goes. So the reason they call it sucker growth is that from the roots, if you have a fruit tree, you have a graft below the ground. And then you attach the tree on top, not for the shade tree, but fruit trees. Then whatever grows, if the bottom starts growing from below the graft, you wind up having that one becoming a tree, and the top of the tree starts dying, going downhill, and eventually this will be the tree, the sucker growth, and not your main tree. And the problem with not having it as the main tree then is that what comes up from your sucker growth was really great against our clay soil and making great roots, but it's not going to give you the fruit. If you have a wonderful, sweet, golden Alberta peach, that rootstock is not going to give you golden, sweet peaches. It will give you something small, maybe, something that's not all that tasty. Great roots, lousy tree. First thing you do all year round is get rid of sucker growth. This is the next step, step 2. You took sucker, now you go into your tree and you look for all the dead, diseased, broken, and dying branches and take them out. So, right here I have a dead, no leaf branch. I'm going to take it out. Also, when you cut things, if you notice there's a smooth side to a pruning shear and a space side. If you cut with the space side, it puts your cut up in the air this much, for this much. If you cut the smooth side, you cut against the flat side. The other thing you need to know about cutting is on all trees there is a collar, which is, let's see if we can get a picture, right here, can you see here? On this one at all? There's a round spot, and then here's part that died down to it. Right here is a collar, and whenever you cut these, you cleave the collar. Because when a tree heals itself, see this lovely little collar around this tree? When it heals itself, it actually puts little like Lego blocks in a circle on the edge, and then it puts another layer and another layer till it completely covers this space on this little cuff. So when people cut branches and they cut into the branch, those are the reason you wind up getting holes in your limbs. Not a good idea. It can't heal very well. So here's one that was cut and left a dead. And so we're going to cut it back to the collar, which is what you should do. It's a little high still. There, and this one too wasn't cut right. Leave it at the collar. Let's get this down to the collar now. There. So you can see I left a collar on it. So we're going to take this one back to the collar. It's a dead one. So we're going to go through this tree and take out dead ones. And the biggest, and usually you can even use smaller pruning shears. I'm here with these with long handles or loppers. And this one is dead too, so I'm going to take it back. There it goes. And then you can start seeing what's happening with this tree. First of all, the really neat thing is you start getting open spaces. This is dead too. So if I try to just prune for shape, I would then have a tree that would be, maybe these dead ones would be the ones left. So you really have to do the bad branches. If they're having disease, you take them out too. Here's one that's dead over here. And I'm just using the lopper so I can reach easily into these branches. But some of these I would have done with smaller shears. There is a broken branch on this tree, I don't know if you can see it on the video, up in the top here, it's bent down here. This is broken. We'll probably get up on the ladder, and we're going to go back to the collar, and we will take out the broken too. You certainly don't want to plan your tree over broken branches. So once you go and take out the broken and the dead and diseased, then you can start going to make the air spaces. So we'll talk about that next step. Okay, we've got this broken one I'm going at. Here we go. It was broken, even though it was alive, it was still a broken one. So we're going to take this one out. Okay, now, the next thing is water spouts. If you think of a fountain going directly up in the air, that is a water spout. When you're looking at fruit trees or shade trees, water spouts, actually, you want your branches coming out at a 45, and yet the water spouts grow really fast, especially when you cut something back. Someone cut this shade tree back. Now I've got lots of growth, which really isn't what you want. And what it will do is you don't want crossing branches. This is the step we're at. We've gone from suckers, we've gone from dead, diseased, dying, and now we're going to stop the crossing branches. Crossing branches are bad because then as they rub, they're going to rub into the bark and let diseases in. So we really don't want crossing. So as you can see, the sucker growth goes directly up in the air. Sucker growth, scratch that. Sucker is on the bottom, water spouts. Think of a fountain going directly up. So I'm going to take out these fountains because we don't want that in this tree. And as we're working on this tree, you start seeing that, now see, this one's going horizontal and this one's, they're crossing each other. So then you start saying to yourself, do I want it to go more out that way, or do I want them to come this way out? And often you'll step down off your ladder. It's really important to do that and look at things and get a really good idea. Like this one's nicely going up. It's not necessarily, it's coming out. It's not too bad. But then there are other ones like this, as you can see, are going directly up in the air, and they're not doing the tree any good. If it were a fruit tree, these going straight up in the air, the water spouts, do not give you fruit. They really don't. They may at the very top, like a plum, at the very top of it give you some fruit, but the most fruit comes out from a 45 like this. The least fruit comes from the vertical ones. So you really don't want vertical ones. That does not mean you clean every branch off a branch of a tree. That it does not make sense. But you want to have the branches coming out, and then as you take these vertical ones, I'm going to go, let's see, let's take a look at this. Of course, you never want to plan on something that's not there. And I'm kind of thinking we have a path here. So I'm going to, and remember, this is the side with the bump, and this is the flat. So I'm going to bring the flat over to the tree. I'm going to take that one out, and then we won't have these, there. Then they won't be crossing. So see, what you have now is everything's going in a direction like railroad tracks. And you can see, even though this is bent, I may have to take it out just because it got broken. Here, we'll take it out. Here we go. Take it out because it's broken. But what you have is these spaces because everything's going in the same direction, but space between. This one, let's see, there we go. So what you're doing is you're creating a situation where things that would definitely damage. Also, you don't want things going into the center of the tree. It's okay for the branches to come over, but you don't want, again, this eventually, if it was going across, will cross. So you're not wanting crossing branches. So I'm looking at this one. You can see it's going and crossing everything that, and here's another one. It's crossing, this one is coming out nicely right here. And this one's coming over it, and these are coming over it. So we look at this and say, do I want this branch and leave that? Or do I want this branch? And we start deciding, what do we like to see in this tree? We definitely don't want these coming up the middle. So I'm going to take it back to this, I'm going to take some of the top down. So we're going to do that. There we go, some of it's leaving. And we're going to look at it again and say, wow, this one, look at that water spout, right? Going straight up. Nope, not real interested in that, so let's go do another one. Okay, and sometimes your loppers are only geared for a certain size branch, and it's super important that you don't muscle it, because what happens is when you get a really big branch and you start playing around with loppers and trying to get it to go, eventually what happens is it bends this one out, and you start having it so when you try and cut, as you can see these come together, this comes together, what will happen is it'll be out here and you've completely ruined your lopper. So if you're dealing with it, if it gets too hard to cut, do a saw. Here is the last step. You want to size your tree. You want to bring it down, but you can never bring a tree down to more than 1/3. Otherwise, it sends up a whole bunch of growth and it doesn't do a really good pruning job. So just as you can see, there's some 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 branches that are really high up there. And maybe this one over here, we're going to take, and maybe that one over here at the end, we're going to take them back. And we're going to take them down 1/3 so that that extra wispy growth is going to leave. And that would finish your tree. During the summer, there's summer pruning for your fruit trees, and that keeps them lower and doesn't give a big bunch of growth. We'll be talking about that during the summer, but right now we're talking about winter pruning of deciduous or shade trees.